Hello everyone and welcome back to Russell's Movie Reviews, the show where I review stuff that's supposed to be pretty good, maybe one of the best movies of all time, or a film that absolutely sucks and sure to remain in the depths of hell. Now last time on the second Halloween special, we discussed the first Child's Play from 1988, and I overall thought that was a really good movie, with some parts about it, but overall was a enjoyable experience. Um, Today this week we are going to be discussing one of the biggest masterpieces in horror and suspense ever made. And if it isn't obvious by the title and the thumbnail, today we're going to be reviewing and discussing Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho, released on June 16th of 1960. Now, to describe my history with this film, um, I have heard about this film for a while. Really, basically ever since I got into horror, I've just been hearing so much about. Oh yeah, you need to see Psycho at some point. You need to see Psycho before you die. It's one of the greatest horror films, suspense films ever made, and you need to go and check it out. But yeah, for the longest time, I never had it. Um, and then around end of 2019, that's when the buzz started going around that a few Alfred Hitchcock films were going to be released on 4K. That being Psycho, The Birds, Rear Endo, and Vertigo. I think those were all that were announced to be released in 4K initially. And so far, what we got was that they were going to be all released in this collection, and that's all we got. And then Best Buy was like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna be releasing this exclusive 4K steelbook." And so I thought, well, really, this is really like the only one I care about. Plus, I already got the birds, so I thought, you know what, might as well pick up the 4K steelbook and finally check it out for myself. Ever since I got this, I still haven't checked it out until today, which I obviously had to watch it for the review. Um, And this, like I said, this film is one of the biggest, suspense films ever, which makes sense why to this day I think there's about five sequel no no I think about four sequel films, four films in the but technically five in the entire franchise including this. Um Along with a TV show Bates Motel, which I believe is up to 3 seasons, maybe four. I don't know if it's still going on. Leave that down in the comments down below if you know that. Um, uh, but yeah, so um, there's obviously been the original. There also has been. I think I might have shown this in a video before, but just to be sure, uh, in 1983 we had Psycho 2, which, in my opinion, is a great follow up to the original. Obviously, not as good as the original, but is a good follow up sequel to the original. And then I think in '86 we had Psycho 3, which is an okay film overall. And then in 1990 we had Psycho 4: The Beginning, which I believe was a TV movie. Correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not so well versed in the some of the later sequels. But I believe, yeah, Psycho 4 was a made for TV film. Which again is just okay overall. And um and then we had the 1998 remake, which everyone considers to be one of the worst horror remakes ever. And I will discuss that in a future Halloween special, even though I really don't want to. um, so yeah, but enough dawdling about the sequels. Let's talk about the original. So this was made with a budget of only $800,000, uh, which I thought would be at least made, with a $5 million budget. But no, this was, you know, very tight budget. Domestically, it made about 32 million, and worldwide, it made about over 50 million. So this was a renowned success. And like I said, obviously, and as you guys could tell by the cover art, it's directed by Alfred Hitchcock, who as I mentioned earlier, who is the master of suspense. That's literally what people gave. That's why he's called it, because he's made such classics in the suspense genre, like Psycho, for example, The Birds, which I've already talked about a few months ago, I think. It might have been last year. Um, you know, Rear Window, Vertigo, North by Northwest. Such great classic films that if you say Alfred Hitchcock, who what what they talking about. But I forgot. I don't know exactly what film. What like this might have been his. I don't think this was his second film, but like I don't know what like uh how many films he did before this. I guess that's the best way to say it. There's hair all over my microphone. Um, I don't know how many films he made before this. Um, but you know, you mentioned Alfred Hitchcock. One of the first things that comes up is Psycho, because it's such a freaking masterpiece. Um, I mean, yeah, it's a fantastic film, but I'll just say it right now. I don't really think it's a masterpiece. Don't hurt me, but there's one major flaw that I have with it that kind of makes it not such a masterpiece for me. But overall, but if that wasn't for that, then yes, it would be. But I'll get to that in a little while. But let's get on to the plot. So Phoenix secretary Marion Crane, played by Janet Lee Curtis, uh, on the lam after stealing $40,000 from her employee in order to run away with her boyfriend Sam Loomis, played by John Gavin, is overcome by exhaustion during a heavy rainstorm. Traveling on the back roads to avoid the police, she stops for the night at the ramshackle Bates Motel, and meets the polite but highly strung Norman Bates, played by the fantastic Anthony Perkins, a young man with an interest in taxidermy and a difficult relationship with his mother. So, like I said, pretty much everyone who you know watches film knows what Psycho is. Even if you haven't actually seen the film, even through pop culture knowledge, you know what Psycho is. So you know it's pretty safe to assure that mostly everyone knows what the plot is. But again, just to reassure, just be sure, might as well go over it. Um, but really, what is there to say else that no one else has mentioned? This is, one of the most iconic films in horror and film in general. Um, but I'll try and not focus on the pop culture status along with, talking about this film along with the sequels, because the sequels are a whole can of worms that I can get into now. But I just want to talk about the first film as a whole. So, um, this was, made in 1960, so you might expect, it to be, a standard color film. Um, which, if you haven't seen the film, you may be surprised that for a 1960 film, this is shot in black and white, not in color, which was on the rise at the time, because only, 29, no, 20 years prior, 21 years prior, you had The Wizard of Oz that came out in 1939. So, you know, by this point, color was, not the mainstream, but it was at this point, it was getting a lot of recognition, and a lot of studios were starting to use color now. But no, Alfred Hitchcock wanted to go with black and white because, um, it brought out the suspense a lot more. And it made it feel like a classic suspense film, um, um, like he, used to do, and what brought him all the fame. Um, what got him a lot of attention back then, I should say. Um, and really overall, I feel like that the black and white nature of the film, even though it obviously was at the time kind of a risky move, because again, a lot of studios were going, "Hey, color's starting to become a new thing. Why don't we use that?" But Alfred Hitchcock was like, "No, I want to make this film black and white." It actually surprisingly works for the film because, um, I feel like that if they made this film, this particular film at least, in color, I mean, yeah, it probably would have had the same effect, but overall, I feel like that, it probably wouldn't get as, be as popular as it would have been if it was in color. Um, I mean, because compared this film to, its sequel, which was made, about 23 years later, this film works in color because this was made in 83. No one really was using black and white film anymore for, especially for a horror film. Um, Whereas in 1960, it was still kind of eh, like we can use either, but it was still kind of a risky move to do black and white. So, I mean, I still love Psycho 2 for what it is, but making this film into color probably wouldn't have made much of a difference, really. Or, okay, I probably shouldn't have said that. Maybe it just would have gotten much traction and wouldn't have been as popular if it was in color compared to, um, how it is being in black and white, because it's kind of the same thing that happened with Night of the Living Dead, which surprisingly came out 8 years after this film did. But that film was shot in black and white. Although, granted, that one is because it was an independent film, while this one was okay. Well, basically, Alfred Hitchcock's read the book and was like, "I want to make this into a film," and then Paramount was just very, not too, enthusiastic about it as Hitchcock was. So they were like, "Okay, you can go and make the film, but we aren't supporting you." So Hitchcock bought the rights to the book for only about 9 grand. And then I think either Paramount gave him a very small budget, or he got the budget from his own back pocket. And then it was like, okay, I want to make this into a film. And then obviously we have, what it became. Whereas with Night of the Living Dead, it was kind of, just a couple of film students that was like, we want to make a film. And, them being, poor, college students and, not being a part of, a major studio, they had to go and buy a camera themselves, which had to be filmed on black and white. Whereas, over the years now, obviously, Night of the Living Dead has become one of the most cherished horror films of all time. And people have, tried to make colorized versions of Night of the Living Dead. But even, really anyone can say that, yeah, it works a lot better being in black and white because that's what the film was intended for. It was shot that way. It wasn't shot in color. It was shot in black and white, and it works better being in black and white compared to it being in color. That can go with the same for Psycho. Um, but enough doubling about that. Let's go over the cast. Now, usually with an Alfred Hitchcock film, especially after, I think actually really after this film, when you think of an Alfred Hitchcock film, you don't really think, oh, dude, let's watch these actors, do their part. I mean, yeah, they can be good in their own right, but you're not really thinking about how the actors are gonna do. You're really like, even then, like when you were even talking about an Alfred Hitchcock film recently, or like within like the last like 10, 20 years, you're not gonna be talking about the actors. I mean, yeah, in a small portion, but no, your real main thing you're gonna be talking about is Alfred Hitchcock. Um, because I think he was one of the first, if not the first director to be, uh, to be talked about more than the film's own actors. Because for example, The Birds. Do you know, like, really, like, do you know what the actors are in that film? Not really. All you know that it's an Alfred Hitchcock film. North by Northwest. I mean, yeah, you have the main character, and you'll like him, but do you really remember what his name was in the film or his, real life persona? No. All you care about is that, or not all you care about, but all you know is that it's an Alfred Hitchcock film. This is kind of along the same lines, but there's one actor in this film that stand. No, actually, there's a couple of actors that stand past over everyone else. And when you say Psycho, you're like, oh, it's I know those two. Obviously, besides Alfred Hitchcock. Um, and those are Anthony Perkins and Janet Lee Curtis as Norman Bates and Marion Crane, you know, respectively. Um, Now Anthony Perkins, I have only heard about really in terms of the Psycho movies. I haven't really seen him in anything else. Granted, that is kind of due to the fact that since this film came out and this was really his breakout role, he was kind of typecast as this, as mother's boy, kind of. So he never really got to step out of that persona for a while. And then obviously he made a comeback in Psycho 2, and then obviously 3, and then 4, and then um you know and then I don't think really he did anything else besides the Psycho films before his, I believe, his unfortunate passing around the mid 2000s. um so yeah, he like his character, like he will always be known as Norman Bates, but you know even as Norman Bates, he does a fantastic job in pulling, especially in the because I feel like that in my opinion, the best parts of his character, or like the best scenes with him, are actually when you first meet him. When Marine first shows up at when Marine or when Janet Leigh shows up at the Bates Motel. And he's playing off, being that, standard guy, that you just find at a motel like this. Um, and I actually like that side of the character better compared to when he's going kind of insane or just excuse me, but like not insane, but when he starts acting up a bit later on in the film. um, he really, I feel like that his performance is way better when you first meet him and he's, acting like a normal guy compared to later when he's starting, just kind of start cracking a bit. We obviously have Janet Lee Curtis as Marine Crane. Or I actually don't know how to pronounce Janet Lee's name. Is you just call her Janet Lee or Janet Lee Curtis? For the sake of this, I'm just saying Janet Lee Curtis. But if I am wrong and it is actually pronounced Janet Lee, uh, just leave it down in the comments down below if you guys actually know that. Obviously, Janet Lee is, the poster girl, and really in all the promotional artwork, you always see, her as, front and center. Um, and if you guys are established horror fans, you guys may know that Janet Lee Curtis is the mother, but Janet Lee is the mother to Jamie Lee Curtis, who obviously starred in the classic 1978 horror film Halloween. which I have already discussed last year for the Halloween special. Um, and if this looks a little interesting, I will be having a video up probably by Monday. Just doing a general channel update, and I will be discussing what this is. But obviously, being the mother to Jamie Lee Curtis, you can kind of see the similarities between this film and the first Halloween film. Um, and um, obviously, what happened. If you guys are fans of this film and are fans of horror in general, you know what happens to her about not even halfway through the film. But in case you guys haven't, I'll save that for my favorite scenes. But besides them two, they have Vera Miles as Leila Crane, who is um, Moraine's sister, and she would obviously return for Psycho 2 in 1983. But between the first and second Psycho films, I don't really know if she did anything after, at least the after the original film. And she's actually, I think she's still working to this day at over in age 90. So, and I don't think she's gonna be acting. She's obviously not acting, but she's still alive and kicking to this very day. We have John Gavin as Sam Loomis, who is the girlfriend to Moraine. And again, if uh, Sam Loomis does sound familiar, it is obviously the name of Donald Pleasence's character, Dr. Samuel Loomis, in Halloween. Um, so you can kind of see how Psycho has very similar connections to the original Halloween film, at least. Um, and maybe responsible for some other scenes in future Halloween films, which I'll discuss in future Halloween specials. But having the same, having the main girl or the final girl at least be the daughter to the mother, or the character in the original film, and having the doctor of the killer be the same name as a character in Psycho kind of shows you that they were pulling, or they were getting similarities between you know uh for from Psycho to use in Halloween. Um, we have Virginia Gregg as Norma Bates, who is Norma Bates, sorry, who is Norman Bates' mother. Um, for most of the film, we don't really see her move. We only hear the voice of her, which was done by Virginia Gregg. I think there's one shot in the film that you do see her kind of walk by. I believe that might have been another actress. Because I looked this film up on Wikipedia, and there was three actresses who played Norma Bates in the original film. Um, but it seems like that in terms of this film and the follow up, that she is the only one that people credit as you know being Norma Bates. So I'm just using that. And if you guys are she by the way, they all so far all of these actors do either good or fantastic in the roles. Um, but if you guys are Alfred Hitchcock fans, you guys may know that that Hitchcock himself appears in every single one of his movies, I believe, as most likely as a cameo. And this film is no different. Who he plays the man outside the real estate office when Moraine comes through the door, and you see like a guy there with like I think like a white fedora, kind of like talking to someone, and then Jane Lee walks in. That was Alfred Hitchcock. Uh, so yeah. Um, we have Martin Balsam as Milton Arbogast, who is the detective trying to look for Moraine Crane after she's quote unquote gone missing. After they figured out that she was the one who stole the $40,000. Um, and he does good with the role that he's given. Granted, though, it is a short part due to what happens to him later on in the film. And finally, we have John McIntyre. I'm already knowing that just from the sound of that. I'm already going to pronounce this wrong. McIntyre. So sorry if I butchered that name. As Sheriff Sheriff Al Chambers, who again does fine with the performance. He's with the with his role, but again only pops up in a few scenes. So yeah, now it's time to go over favorite scenes, and I'll just state this right now for any Alfred Hitchcock aficionados. Really, all my favorite scenes are like all the famous ones that anyone can say, "Oh, I know that scene." Um, but for anyone who doesn't know, uh, who hasn't seen the film or doesn't know about any of the pop culture status of any of the most iconic scenes from it, I'll run you down. So my overall favorite scene from this film is the most iconic scene in the entire film when after Moraine has talked to Norman, she goes into her room and goes to take a shower. And she's there taking a shower, and then you see like a shot of her taking a shower, and you see a silhouette open the door uh with a gray wig on and a dress. You see, you see this figure open the door, uh slowly walk up to the shower curtain and rip it open with a big butcher knife in her hand, and hacks Maureen to death. It's one of the most iconic scenes in horror, and definitely the most iconic scene in the entire film. And really, it comes down to one being really the main reason why it's so iconic is the score by Bernard Herrmann, who um did a fantastic job with the score. I might as well talk about it now. Um, he did a fantastic job with this, especially with that shower scene. It's one of the most iconic pieces of score in the entire, horror genre. And even then, besides that, the whole soundtrack as a whole is great overall. Yeah, there is a lot of kind of recycled tracks throughout the film, but it is good overall and great. I don't know if there's an expanded release with all the tracks on it. I don't even know if the soundtrack came out when it was initially released, because this was still 1960. Whereas compared to Psycho 2, when the film came out, it had a cassette and LP release for, I think about a month before the film came out, which only had about 30 minutes of music, and then in 2015 they came out with an expanded release which had all the score, the entire soundtrack on it, and then I think that went out of print, and then they reissued the soundtrack in 2019-2020, I believe, to coincide with the 60th anniversary of the original. I believe that might still be in print. I'm not sure. But in terms of the original Psycho film, I don't know whether there is an official complete soundtrack for the film. Maybe some research might, help. Um, but um, yeah, that's my first favorite scene, and um, my second favorite scene is when uh, detective, or no, not even detective, private agent Arbogast is looking through, comes back to the Bates motel after he kind of gets shooed off by Norman and goes to try and talk to Norma. When the classic score comes back when she runs out of the room with a big butcher knife, slashes across Arbogast's face as he very goofily tumbles down the stairs, lands on the ground, and Norma stabs him, and then ultimately kills him off. To might as well talk about it since I've already talked about the two scenes really where it's most noticeable. Before, when supposedly when the film was released theatrically and obviously had all of its home media releases, uh it's always been released with an R rating. Um you know and people always thought, like, okay, you know this is probably going to be the only version that came out that had the only version of Psycho that's out. But in 2020, before the this 4K came out, there was a 60th anniversary Blu-ray release, which contained obviously a Blu-ray disc and a digital copy. That disc came with with Psycho, which was been on previous releases, and then Psycho Uncut. Now, everyone was looking at this and I was like, wait, Psycho Uncut. What does that mean? I think in total it's only about, I believe, and I swear to God on this, 20 seconds of additional footage. If even. I think it's actually about like 10 seconds. The only two shots that I can notice that were extended in any way was when before Moraine gets killed in the shower, she's getting undressed. Now, in the regular R-rated cut that's been released for years now, she takes off her shirt and then just puts a robe on. Whereas in the uncut version, you see her take off, her dress, sit down on the bed. It cuts to Norman looking for the people, and then it cuts to Moraine taking off her bra. And it cuts back to Norman, and it cuts to her putting on the robe and then getting into the shower. Now it doesn't show any risque things. It's literally just a like 3-second shot of her taking off her bra, and then going to throw it onto the bed, and then cuts away to Norman looking for the people. When with Arbogast's death, most of it is still the same, where when Norma comes out of the room, slashes him across the face, still has that goofy fall. But when he hits the ground and Norma stabs him in the R-rated cut, you had Norma only stabs Arbogast twice, and then fades to black. Whereas in the uncut version, you had Norma get down to him and stab him 4 times before it fades to black. And again, there's no extra, gore, even though it's a black and white film. There's no extra gore shots. There's no, no extra shots of the knife going into Arbogast's, body. It's literally just still the same angle shot as the R-rated cut, but it's just slightly extended to show that, there's 2 more knife stabs and then fades to black. That's it. I think there's one more shot in the film that was extended, but I think it was before Marion's death. But that's it. It's literally only like 10 extra seconds of footage. So I mean, granted, I'm glad that they give you the option to go with the regular R-rated cut, which has again been selling for years, and the new uncut version. Although, granted, again, it's kind of like a Candyman situation, whereas like might as well watch the uncut version because it's literally the exact same film, just with a few extra seconds of gore. So it's like might as well watch the uncut because it's literally almost the exact same film. It's not like an Aliens situation where it's like the theatrical cut is way different between compared to the special edition version. This film, it's like 10 seconds of footage and that's it. You can literally just watch this film instead of the theatrical cut, and it will be or the R-rated cut, and it will be fine. Um, and then my final favorite scene would just have to be the whole, reveal of Norma Bates. Which, okay, if you guys haven't seen Psycho, I mean, granted, it was spoilers ever since I started talking about my favorite scenes with, um, Marion. Which, by the way, before we get on to my final favorite scene, it's always been a shock, where she, Janet Leigh is like the poster girl. She's always on every single piece of promotional material, but yet she's killed off within the first 40 minutes of the film. So, in by at this time, it was really unheard of to see, like, oh, like, you put this girl, like, in like a good majority of like the promotional material. I think all of it, but you kill her within the first 40 minutes, and then you focus on her sister. That was unheard of back then. Whereas now, that's kind of more, common to do that. But back in 1960, this was like revolutionary. Um, but anyways, I thought might as well, yeah, I had to mention that at some point. I just forgot to earlier. But my final favorite scene is that it's always been implied that the mother has been killing, killed Marion, killed Arbogast, and now, she's probably gonna kill Lila and Sam. Uh, but uh when Norman starts getting suspicious as to, like, where is your wife, he knocks Sam out and heads back to the house. And when he enters the house, you can actually hear, when he goes up the stairs, you can hear a door open and the light turn on, and it sounds like it's right above Lila. So that's kind of hinting towards what's gonna happen, like the actual twist. But even then, like, it's still kind of like, what is he doing? Is he just checking around the house, or is he going to do something? Um, and we heard earlier, like a little bit before, that that Norman was gonna put Mother into the cellar, like the fruit cellar, and we see a shot of Norman carrying her mother, or his mother, into the cellar, and it just fades to black. Um, and we get to see the mother for really the first time in the entire film, as Lila opens the door and sees Mother sitting there, and she goes up to him and says, Mrs. Bates, and obviously that, psycho shot where it's, she slowly turns around the mother to realize that it's just a dead corpse, and she screams in terror because it's like, oh my god, I just found a dead body here of the mother. She turns around and sees Norman run into the room with a dress on, with gray hair, with a gray wig on, and a butcher knife. And then Sam incapacitates him, and we later on figure out at the police station, after a psychiatrist walks in, that basically he poisoned, um, both his mother and her lover, uh, the mother's lover, and then from that point on, he just had no control over himself. It was either a small fragment of Norman, and then um, it would just change back to a normal and then he goes off and kills people. Um, so it's a very twisted kind of plot, and it's kind of very similar to Friday the 13th, where but it's kind of role reverse, where in Friday the 13th, it's the son that gets killed, and then it's the mother that actually goes on a violent rampage. Whereas in this film, it's the mother, the the son kills the mother, and then acts like her whenever he goes on a killing spree. So it's very, it's a very Hitchcock kind of, ending. Um, so, and I love it. Um, and again, obviously, as I mentioned at the beginning of this review, It would go on, to like cycle 2, cycle 3, cycle 4 at the beginning, and then that's the final in the original timeline. And then we had the 98 remake, which is hot garbage. And then we have the Bates Motel, which I think it's still currently running. I'm not exactly sure, but I think it's up to like 3 or 4 seasons at this point. And yeah. So I guess to really quickly talk about releases. Uh, as I mentioned, obviously at the beginning, this is the 4K 60th anniversary Steelbook, Best Buy exclusive, and you've always seen the front, most of the review. I like the very simple design of it, where it's the knife, Jan Lee's screaming face, and then just Alfred Hitchcock Psycho on the front. There's the spine with the blood red kind of title. And then there's the back, which is the other side of the knife, and it's the house, the Psycho house. And then you open it, and you get, the classic cover shot of Norman Bates right there. And you have, the 4K and the Blu-ray, which, obviously, the 4K is a brand new transfer with all these special features. The Blu-ray disc, I initially thought when I got it, because there was like no new like disc art, and I thought it would kind of be the same as this one. That I thought that this was an old like Blu-ray scan. But surprisingly, it's actually the 60th anniversary Blu-ray disc. Because it has both versions on it. So I was like, okay, that's actually kind of a good thing that I was able to watch the uncut version on my standard Blu-ray player. Which, yes, I know that I've been getting, obviously 4Ks and stuff like that, but I obviously don't have a 4K player. I do plan on changing that at some point, actually relatively soon. So, that will change, and I'll actually be starting to watch 4K stuff now. But and then on the other side is just probably just the actual staircase itself. Um, there has been a separate 4K, another 4K steelbook release, because after the collection came out, they released all 4 films individually in a regular like case style, and then obviously in a steelbook edition where I believe instead of like having this like custom artwork, which I still love this, they had you have they have the original poster designs, which granted that is a cool thing, and I was gonna pick up um the Bird Steelbook 4K, but I didn't end up getting that initially, so I'm kind of bummed out about that, but whatever. Um, to talk about fun facts, in the and this is a fun fact where it's like you actually have to kind of watch the film. It's not like behind the scenes trivia. Um, which granted I knew about this for a while, but even then, still watching it, I was kind of like, that's actually still kind of cool that they actually put this attention to detail. Whereas, okay, so did you know that in the opening scene, Marine Crane is wearing a white bra. They show that she's like angelic, she's an angel. But then when she steals the money, she wears a black bra because it shows that she's, done something bad, like very wrong and evil. Which it was like, okay, that's actually kind of clever that they actually put that attention to detail. Um, so, uh, you know, great job on, paying attention. And my second fun fact is that did you know that Walt Disney himself refused to allow Alfred Hitchcock to film at Disneyland in the early 60s because he did not like Psycho that much. Um, you know, because yeah, even though oh yeah, it's right there. Because even though Psycho isn't actually that bloody, I think really the only blood that you see is in the shower scene, and then the only time after that is when you see the flash on RBS's face. But even then, that's very brief. Um, so you know, it's very subtle in the blood, but yet it was considered too disgusting for for Walt Disney that he refused to allow him um to film at Disneyland. Reportedly saying that is that disgusting film Psycho. Like that's literally what he said. So I was like, Jesus. So, final thoughts on Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho. It's an amazing film. I feel like that anyone should watch it. My only problem, because people keep on saying that this is a masterpiece, I would agree. But in my personal opinion, and this is gonna sound very petty in my opinion, and I know I'm probably gonna get hate comments from everyone who has seen this film. In my opinion, the first like 30, 40 minutes of the film is kind of slow. And I get that it's kind of, supposed to be because it's a suspense film, but it's no like it's like too slow to be a suspense film. So, you know, if it wasn't if like the first like 30, 40 minutes of the film was like a little bit faster paced, then yes, absolutely A plus. But because of that, and which is a good chunk of the film, I unfortunately had to bump this down a grade because of that. But granted, though, it still, in my opinion, is a fantastic film that everyone should watch. So even though it's not going to get the A plus treatment as it really should, I'm still going to give this film an A. But it's slightly like right there at the very top of just a straight A, where it's like it's right there to becoming an A plus, but it's like slightly not there. Um, but I still recommend everyone get it. If you can find the 4K, great. Perfect. But even then, if you can find only the 60th anniversary Blu-ray, go ahead, go and get that. Because I believe it's still the same transfer, obviously downscaled to 1080p, or just compressed down to a 1080 picture quality, and it still has both versions of the film and has all the special features on it that I believe the 4K has as well. So anyway, just try and pick up this film. It's great overall. I feel like that anyone, horror or just film in general, should check this out. It's again one of those films that you should check out before you die. So that was my review on Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho. If you guys enjoyed this video, you can click over here at my profile picture to go to my YouTube channel, or click down there at my username to go to also visit my YouTube page. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and hit that bell icon to get notified when future videos are coming out. And click over here to watch the first 2 episodes of the second annual Halloween special. Stay tuned for next week, where I'll be discussing, honestly, one of my favorite films of all time. It's a sequel. It is the sequel to Alien, which I discussed last time. And it should be no surprise that next week I will be discussing Aliens, released in 1986. I'm so excited to review this. It's one of my favorite films of all time. And, I'll discuss that more when I get to that review. Also, make sure to follow me on my, social media pages. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Those are all down in the description below. And make sure to follow me on Twitch because I will be doing some spooky live streams very soon. And stay tuned for like Monday or Tuesday where I'm going to be doing a channel update slash Blu-ray collection update and a possible Q&A. You guys post down some questions in the comment section in this video. So, yeah, guys, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and stay tuned for next week for the Aliens review. Live long and prosper. Out.